people have already started marrying, their AI bots.
I'm sorry.
I just can't.
What are you talking about that they're marrying AI companions?
Oh my God, Julia. Oh my God, Julia. Oh my God, Julia.
No, I saw the
I'm so excited.
Ice Queen, Beyonce. When I tell you,
how was it? Tell me about it. Tell me. Don't leave out a few details, but don't leave out any details.
Okay. First of all, the best dancers. I'm going to give a shout out to the dancers in a band to start. I mean, Blue Ivy came out. It was screaming blue. It was the dancing. You can see the confidence, from the previous concert to this one. The wardrobe. I mean,
I've heard that her wardrobe was incredible.
The wardrobe was insane, and it was very. I like it when the wardrobe changes are like they're there, but they're also minimum. Like it's not like a wardrobe change like every 10 seconds feels like the whole concert. It is a 3-hour show though. I mean, it is a 3-hour.
It's probably show. Not long enough at 3 hours. You want
it was
more.
Not long enough at 3 hours. I mean, but she's dancing, but can we talk about the vocals? This woman's
her voice is incredible.
Woman's range, vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. And the way she incorporates like songs from previous albums into, even though this is a cowboy. Right? I had my fan that said Carter. It lit up so you could move with the time. But it was the arrangement of the show. Like, just, I'm giving you a little Cowboy Carter. I might throw in this song from this album, this song from that, the dance. Okay, let's go here. Let me showcase my dancers who are amazing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to come out and sing some opera and country, and then a little bit of gospel and rock and roll, and always soul. And I'm like, the end.
I can just feel it. I've got chills on my body. I could just feel it. When
I tell you the it's the end, and she's thanking people for coming out. I am bawling. I am
ugly cry, ugly cry.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm crying at a concert, like in a way, because I was like, I'm crying. Like I admitted I was crying. The lady next to me was crying. And like we didn't expect to have that reaction.
Really? I cry at concerts. I do. I cried the first time I saw Paul McCartney. I just sobbed like ugly, like snot cry.
And you can see that the energy. I mean, we talking, stadiums, over 60,000 people together in a collective joy.
Yes.
Like in a collective joy. And I love looking around to see which songs they really gonna dance to, which songs, like that. And it was the
all
visuals.
The songs? Did they not dance to all the songs?
They did, but they were dancing. But you could tell when they really got hyped, right? There is like when, because you have certain songs from certain albums when like when she did Crazy in Love, it was a different arrangement, and it was like but when she did Cuff It from Renaissance, people lost their minds. Like everybody was just like going nuts.
Yeah.
So it was dancing, but we're doing a little more movement of the dance.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we've seen people do dances from like videos. It was so good that literally, I was like, okay, I see why people come 2 or 3 times to see her.
Yeah.
Of the same,
Sure. Like, yes, go around.
I was like, okay, yeah.
So why is she, so we saw the Eras tour, what was it? 140 stops, right now, Shakira world tour, like all over, Pink, all over. Why is she doing so few shows? Why is she, is it going to continue to expand? Is she just like kind of doing a soft launch and then going to keep going
I don't know. Like, is it, I mean, I don't know why. I feel maybe sometimes.
I need you to know why. I need you to tell me.
Look, I talked to Mama Tina.
Get her on the phone.
Mama Tina on the phone. Mama Tina knows everything. Could be less is more. Could be just,
But I think with her, more is more. Less is more in a lot of times, but with Beyonce.
Okay, but like, she still is doing a lot of shows. I mean, she's doing 3 to 4 shows a city. So
Okay.
and then
That's true.
she's taking a long break, and then she has the European leg, and then it's back to like the US leg. But I mean, she has to protect that voice. I mean, that voice is, I mean, you hear the country, you hear the gospel, you hear the rock, you hear the
she can do
influence.
it all. There's nothing she can't do.
There's nothing she can't do. So I am thinking this is my opinion. Maybe she's like doing less shows because maybe she's gonna have another concert tour next year. Maybe she might drop another album. I don't know. I'm just saying. I am.
Oh, Beyonce, we want more of you.
More of you. Okay, Michelle, are you ready for today's guest?
I am. I'm excited about this episode. Yeah.
I'm excited about love. I'm excited about sometimes romance. I'm not a romance person, but connections. Learning about connections, learning how to stay connected, learning, about keeping relationships and friendships in community, in all those good things. So I can't wait to speak to our guest today.
I'm excited. This is all tying into my word of the year, Ubuntu.
Ubuntu, yes. Also, my word of the year is savor. So I'm savoring my friendship, savoring all the things.
All the things.
We are thrilled to welcome Francesca Hogi to Just Getting Better. Francesca is a love coach and educator with a passionate, pragmatic, and holistic approach to helping people find true love. A former corporate lawyer, she began blogging about dating in 2008 to share her hard-won lessons on the topic. We've all been there. In 2014, she pivoted from law into matchmaking and coaching to follow her passion for positively meddling in other people's love lives. And look back. She's the host of the top-rated relationship podcast, Dear Franny, founded the True Love Society, and the author of the book, How to Find True Love. Prior to her love career, Francesca appeared on 2 seasons of the iconic reality TV show Survivor. Please welcome Franny to the show.
Welcome, Francesca. So glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Julia. That was a great intro. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you both.
Okay. I'm so excited because I have a lot of friends who I've had recently a lot of conversations on relationships and dating and everything right now. And I think, and we were having this conversation, so women have always been sold the idea of a soulmate. Like there was one person who is believed to be their one and only true love. Do you believe the idea of soulmate have evolved, or that soulmates can be outside of romantic love? Because I see my girlfriends like Michelle, they're my soulmates as well.
Yes, such a good question. So I do believe that soulmates are beyond romantic love. You can have soulmates that are friends. You can have soulmates that are children. I mean, like you could, one of your children could be a soulmate. I think that there's lots of ways that operates, because we have all of these different rules and we have all these different perspectives on love. But if you look at love on a spiritual level, which is what it is, love is spiritual, meaning it is literally of the spirit. It's not a physical, tangible thing that we can hold in our hands. But obviously, we know the experience of it is so real, right? And what's more real than that? But when you really look on the soul level, then it wouldn't make sense that we only have romantic soulmates, because that's a human sort of concept, and we put people in those boxes. But I do think that I think that all of us have multiple soulmates. I do believe that we also each have the potential. We have potentially multiple romantic soulmates as well. I don't think that every soulmate is meant, even in a romantic sense, is necessarily meant to be your partner forever and ever. I think sometimes people come into our lives to teach us really valuable lessons, because I really do believe that we are all on a lifelong love journey that is really here to teach us how to evolve in love, our ability to give it, our ability to receive it, our ability to recognize and understand what it actually is. And soulmates do that in a really powerful way.
Oh, wow.
That's great. Yeah. Well, I want to say, Francesca, you have lived many diverse experiences in your life. As Julia just went through your bio, you've been a corporate lawyer, a two-time contestant on Survivor, writer, coach, podcast host, and certified matchmaker. As Julia also said, you just published your first book, How to Find True Love, Unlock Your Romantic Flow, and Create Lasting Relationships. So would you please take us through the journey from Michigan Law School to matchmaker? And please do not leave out your 2 seasons of Survivor.
Thank you, Michelle. Another great question. So I, like many people, went to law school, not because I really had a passion for the law or being a lawyer. I really went because I didn't know what else to do. And I wanted to have a career and I wanted to be successful. And people said, oh, you're smart. You should go to law school. And I was like, okay, I'll go to law school. And so being a lawyer is certainly not the worst job in the world. And there were aspects of it that I did enjoy. But I knew that this was not my forever job. And so I was for years in this very sort of this place of discovery, like, okay, what am I here to do? And, how do I best utilize my talents? I mean, something that I'm sure the two of you can relate to, and I'm sure many, many people who are listening can relate to. I envy those people who just knew from the age of 10, this is what I want to be when I grow up. And that's what they are. And they're happy and they're living their dream. That is beautiful. But I was not one of those people. So it was definitely a process of discovery. And, Julia, as you mentioned in the intro, I had gone on my own dating journey as a young lawyer, really found myself as a young lawyer wanting to have love, wanting to have romance, wanting to have relationships, and really not knowing how to make that happen. And luckily, I think one of the blessings was that I did not take it as a fatal flaw within myself that I couldn't figure this out. I really took it as, okay, I have things here I need to learn. So I consider myself to be my first client because I set out on a mission. And I was on Match.com back in the day when nobody wanted to be known or seen on a dating, it was so embarrassing. It was just for losers, right? You all remember that?
Yes.
I don't think that people, young people today, you don't know how stigmatizing that was back then, right? But I was like, I don't have a choice because I do not know what else to do, right? And so I went on all of these dates really with this goal of how do I teach myself how to date? And then it was like, okay, now I know how to get a first date. How do I get a second date? How do I choose? How do I flirt? I kept on kind of getting to these points in that journey where I would run up into an obstacle. It's like, okay, now I'm stuck in this pattern. How do I break this pattern? Mm-hmm. And so I just kept pivoting and just kind of really treating it all as an experiment. So I learned all of this and, I started this dating advice blog because a friend of mine invited me to join a blog that she had started. And she was like, oh, maybe you can write about the law. And I was like, I am not writing about the law in my spare time. Let me tell you that. And she's like, oh, okay, well, you can write about whatever you want. I was like, well, the only thing I could think that I would actually enjoy writing about is dating. And she was like, great, write about dating. So that was how that all began. And then so while I was still in this limbo, I'm writing about dating, not at all connecting any dots of oh, maybe this is something I can do. Because again, this is 2008. So this was before, we had, social media. This is before we had, this culture of coaches. And, that wasn't a thing back then. It was much more, there were much fewer people in that coaching space. So that hadn't even occurred to me. And then this opportunity arose to go on Survivor. And I initially said no, because I was like, well, that looks miserable. I don't want to do that.
It does look miserable.
It does look miserable, and it is miserable. But I had wanted to be
cross off.
Cross it off the list. People were like, how was it? Was it fun? I'm like, did it look fun? No. No, it wasn't fun. Some people enjoy it, but I was not one of those people. But anyway, I'd wanted to be on the show, The Amazing Race. Do you know that show?
Yeah. Oh, we both love The Amazing Race.
Okay, exactly. So I also used to love The Amazing Race. And I was like, oh my God, I would totally win this show. You get to travel around the world, have all these adventures. I was like, I got this. I know how to read a map. I could do I was so excited about the show. So I had applied to be on The Amazing Race with the guy that I was dating at the time. And we got all the way through casting. We got to the finals. They took our passports to get our visas. We got our vaccinations. And I'm like, oh my God, this dream is coming true. Like, I'm actually going to be on The Amazing Race. And then they wound up cutting us at the last minute. And I know that's how I felt. I was like, no, so close.
I didn't even know that could happen.
It can happen. It can happen. So then about a year later, so this was 2010, I guess. Yeah. So a year after that whole Amazing Race fail, Survivor reached out to me because it's the same network, the same casting company. And they said, hey, what do you think about being on Survivor? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But I was in this place of limbo. I was like, okay, I wanted to shake things up in my life somehow. And I was like, okay, I guess maybe this is how to do that. So that's why I said yes. And that's how I ended up on Survivor. So I went on Survivor. Basically, that was a disaster. They invited me back 2 years later. That was also a disaster. But I realized, because when both times, like, I was still a lawyer, I was on this show, didn't go well, and I'm coming back to my same legal job. And I'm like, this is like, something's got to give here, right? And so the second season was actually really a catalyst for me to say, okay, I don't know what it is that I'm here to do on this planet, but this can't be my story. So, and I'm sick of not knowing. So now is the time to figure it out. And as happens when we really make decisions and we're like, okay, universe, show me something, it does. And I went to a 4th of July barbecue and I met a woman who I never seen before, haven't seen since. And she mentioned that she followed a Black male matchmaker on Twitter named Paul C. Brunson. And I was like, what? I'm like, there's a Black male matchmaker. Who is this person? So I instantly took out my phone. I followed him on Twitter. And through following him, I realized, like, oh, this is like a really smart person. He's got, this is his job. Like, this is amazing. And one day he tweeted that he was going to be speaking at the Matchmaking Institute conference in New York. And I was like, there's a matchmaking institute?
I'm thinking,
who knew?
They have conferences? Like, what? So my mind was blown. So I literally responded to his tweet and I was like, I want to go. And he's like, you should come. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I went and I met all of these matchmakers whose job it was to help people find love. And I was like, these are just regular people who have a passion for helping other people with romantic love. What could be more rewarding than this? So the Matchmaking Institute offered certifications. So I went to matchmaking school. I started working for Paul as his lead matchmaker and coach, which is also like a great full circle moment. And that was 12 years ago. And so here we are.
That's great.
That's a, what, life is like this. A lot of times, we go to, in high school, everybody tell you it kind of like this. And then the longer you live, you kind of like this,
Yes.
And I remember you talking about the match. I met my husband. I answered his ad on Craigslist. So when I usually tell people this, but that's also 2007, right? It was like
it was a different world. Yes,
it's a different world.
Craigslist was amazing back then, by the way.
Yeah. I did, but my mother was like, "Go on a place that you buy a couch. Maybe you can find somebody." Like, and that's how funny she said it, and that's what happened. Like,
Love
it is all those kind of crazy stories. But we one of the things you say in the book and on your podcast is that we rank love. But how do you center love at the same time as you rank love? Like, how do you do both? Is there a duality? Because I had never heard anything about ranking love.
Yeah. Yes. So when I say is that we rank love, it's just in terms of like societally, how we talk about love, how we think about love, the type of love that we value. Romantic love is on a pedestal, right? So for instance, if you go home to your to a family dinner over the holidays and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys, I have this new best friend and, they're just so wonderful and they just get me and we have this great, they'd be like, okay, so are you dating this person? Like, you know what I mean? Like they would be like, I'm glad you have a friend, but are you dating anyone? Because in people's minds, things like a friendship is not as important as a romantic partner, right? Or,
True.
you're expected, maybe the only thing that comes close is parenthood, especially motherhood, right? Is like, that's the most special love. That's the greatest love. But the thing that really applies to everyone is this idea of romantic love, right? And so we are often taught that if you don't have a romantic partner, no matter what else you have in life, you're failing. And it leads to so many people, like, if maybe you get married, but then you get divorced and then you feel the shame because you're like, oh no, and now I'm sick, and so this idea of ranking love, and some people might say, oh, well, of course I should care more about romantic love than I should about my friends or my family or my community. But what I really advocate in my work and in the book is for you to really think of yourself in the center of your life as love. Because you are the portal to love, right? Like you are your own portal to love. All of the love that you will experience with another person, within it yourself, is all coming through you, right? So, and we have this abundance of love within us because none of us is worried about running out of love. No one says, I'm gonna hold back and not love because I might run out and I need to save some love. We don't do that. Right? We're worried about running out of time, maybe money, maybe ideas, but not love. So we all inherently know that we have this abundant connection to love. But when we start getting into these hierarchies, it can really actually disconnect us from love. So specifically romantic love, if you are single and you want to meet somebody and you have romantic love up on this pedestal as the most important love, and this is the thing that's going to save you, and this is the thing that's going to bring your life meaning, you are now putting so much pressure, right, on yourself, on every person that you meet, who you're potentially in a relationship with, because of this idea of like, I need this in order to be good enough, right? This is the love that's going to bring this meaning to my life. And what I advocate is that we bring romantic love down to the ground where you are. And it's not that you are abandoning your intention for a romantic partnership because listen, I'm a romantic. I've dedicated 12 years of my life to to helping people find love. Like, obviously, like I want everyone to have the romantic partnership that they want. Like that is my mission in life. However, I want people to really feel like this is something that they can do and not something that they have to get so lucky and be chosen. And if they're not, then their life doesn't have any meaning. So I talk about how you can do two of those things, Julia, to answer your question, which is I'm centering love in my life holistically, and I'm going to bring love to everything that I do because that is the power that I have, right? However, I'm also at this time in my life, I am intentionally focusing on finding a romantic partner or deepening my relationship with my partner. You can do those two things at the same time, and you can do it in an empowering way, which is what the whole book is about.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, me too. I think that's really going to resonate with people that are listening or watching this. Thank you so much.
And also too, I think like, there's people who like, we're married, but people who are single, like you say, divorced, and like the judgment and everything like that around that. And I want, to them to know, like, I'm recommending the book to everybody. I listened to part way and then I was reading like the rest. And because it's a new way of looking at love, of finding romantic love too, I think.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I really think, a big problem is that people feel so disconnected and they feel like if I want to meet somebody, I just got to hope to get lucky, or I got to swipe and swipe and swipe. But then when you have all that pressure on yourself, then you can be much more focused on getting in a relationship versus getting in the right relationship. Right. Like, I'm sure the two of you know many people who were very focused on, they just didn't want to be single, right? This idea of like, I just don't want to die alone. I just don't want to die alone. And now you're focusing on the fear. You're focusing on the thing that you don't want versus saying like, yeah, I have decided that I want to have a committed true love partnership. And that's something that I'm going to go into the world and manifest for myself. Those are two even though the goal is the same, you know, it just the framing of it, our perspective on it matters so, so much. Because that gets into our self-belief, that gets into our confidence, that gets into the choices that we make, that gets into, you know, how open we are to receiving love. I mean, it gets into all sorts of things that are really critically important to have a successful relationship.
Yes, well, absolutely. Thank you. And you said kind of the magic word there that leads into my next question, which is connection. And I know that you are passionate about human connection, not just romantic, as you said, all human connection. Yes. And yet we as a society are really struggling with connection right now. Loneliness has reached epidemic status. There was a recent study that shows 45% of men ages 18 to 25 have never asked a woman out in person. There's another report that says AI companions are gaining popularity among young adults. So, you know, Franny, you've been a relationship coach for, as you said, 12 years. How have you witnessed changes in the human connection? And how is it impacting the role that you're playing now with people?
Yeah. So great question. And yeah, I've definitely seen this evolution over the last 12 years. 12 years ago, and 12 years ago was also when Tinder had just, you know, come out and that was gaining traction. So there was a big shift in how we connected because, you know, as we already discussed, you know, in the days when we were dating on Match.com and on Craigslist, the point was like, let me get on this, meet somebody and get off, right? Like we were not trying to linger. We weren't using it as entertainment. We weren't using that as a replacement for coming together with people in person. We were really using it as a supplement. And what we've seen over the last 12 years is that people have become more and more and more dependent on apps. They've become more dependent on social media. And we have this younger generation who, because they've grown up with this technology, they didn't have the situation that we had, which is like, you didn't have any choice. Right? Like you didn't have any choice but to show up and be the only person in the room, you know, and not know anybody in the room and not be able to use your phone as a crutch and text, you know what I mean? Like, so we just naturally, the way the world used to be set up, we just developed more of this sort of social resiliency and these skills. Yes. And what we've seen with technology is that people have lost that, you know, especially young people. And so it's actually in my work because I was very focused on romantic love at the beginning of my career. And now I am more focused on human connection. I mean, I'm still focused on romantic love, but I still talk a lot about human connection because it's kind of like what I was saying before about like centering love more holistically and realizing like, if you feel really isolated and you feel like you don't have the ability to connect with people, and then you go on a dating app and you think that somehow you're going to magically find that ability to connect and to be vulnerable and to show up with authenticity with a technology which doesn't encourage that, by the way, right? It doesn't encourage vulnerability. It doesn't encourage authenticity. It encourages likes and favorites and engagement and being as popular as possible and all of these things. And so I think we really put ourselves in a situation where it is alarming. And, you know, I mean, I always say, like, if you care about humanity, if you care about things like healthcare and education and climate change, and you care about what we are preparing and the world that we're leaving for future generations, then we should also care about human connection. Because if we don't, we can't just be like, oh, wow, these kids today, like, too bad they don't know how to connect and they're so lonely. Like, no, this is a problem. Like, this is a problem for society. And it's a problem for people's spirits. Right. And so, yeah, I think that we all need to be more mindful, especially now, as you know, you mentioned, Michelle, with the AI companions. People have already started marrying, you know, their AI bots.
I'm sorry.
I just can't.
I'm not trying to be insensitive to anyone that's listening. I'm not trying to be insensitive to anyone watching. What are you talking about that they're marrying AI companions?
I mean that, so the first documented case of this was actually in New York. There was a woman who she created this AI companion, and there's lots of websites or lots of platforms where you can do this, and you can really build your perfect person, right? You can choose obviously what they look like and their hobbies and their interests and how they speak to you and all of the things. And I believe she also made a hologram of this person, so she could kind of interact as much as you can with a hologram. But yeah, that she married this AI, and she says that it's the greatest relationship of her life, because of course it is, in the sense that this AI companion, because it's not a person, it's an algorithm, is infinitely patient, is infinitely, tell me everything, always, what's that word? Like acknowledging and, just anything that you
co-signing everything
that you say. Exactly. So
but it's her that's like, she's created that.
She's created this, and now the algorithm knows how to interact with her in a way that's going to make her feel good. And so I think of it as like, this is just like this.
Yeah, mine is blown. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive. This is one of those like Saturday morning with multiple cups of coffee or tea that's gonna happen, because yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's really sad. I mean, and there's also these services that you can sign up for where you'll get text messages. So your AI companion will text you all day. So, you can just interact with this, which by the way, is what a lot of humans are doing now. A lot of humans, I mean, I have to tell people all the time, I'm like, texting is not dating. Chatting on an app is not dating. Like, people will tell me all the time, they're like, oh yeah, I've been talking to this person for a few weeks, few months. We haven't met yet. I'm like, okay, you're not dating them, right? Like you're texting them every day. Like, and so I think that literally has become normalized in our modern dating culture. So to go from texting every day with a person who you're not interacting with physically to an AI bot who's going to always text you exactly what you want them to say, and you don't have to deal with the complexity of navigating a relationship with another person. I see why that is appealing to people. I get it. And I think we all need to understand that appeal. And if we are disturbed by it, or we see this as not where we want to head as a society, then we need to start talking about it. And we also need to start coming up with solutions. Like, okay, what can I do? How can I bring more people together? Who are the young people in my life? I mean, I don't have children. I have godchildren. And the thing that makes me the happiest is that they ask me for dating advice.
That's great.
And I've had to encourage them because they're boys. I've had to encourage them, like, listen, yeah, you just got to go talk to that girl. Like, you got to go talk, because one of my godsons is gay. Like, yeah, you got to go talk to that boy. Like, you can't just, and they've done it, and they've been brave, and they've gotten quote unquote rejected sometimes, but they've also had successes, and so I think we have to take some responsibility for helping the next generation develop those skills that they are not naturally developing in our current society.
Wow.
Well, well, this is going to lead. Okay, so this is my happy question, because
that was
Julie's
a lot to unpack.
Still recovering from this conversation.
Okay.
Projections form us into becoming the person that we need to be. We can't just be who we are without any, resistance. So anyway, go ahead, Julie.
So I tell people all the time, I'm an impossible flirt. I am a flirt all the time, right? And you say romantic love, you mentioned connecting through flirting.
Yes.
And do you think the idea of flirting has changed due to where we are as a society? Because flirting, in some cases, people might feel is putting pressure on the receiving party. I believe there's a different version than when I grew up of flirting based on what today's version is of flirting. Like, I always say, if I'm at a bar and somebody goes up to me and says, "What are you drinking?" And I go, "What are you buying?" That's my flirt. I don't tell you what I'm drinking. Because now you're buying the next drink.
Yes.
But that's also I think my generational thing. Like, I don't know.
No, that's your personality, because we're the same generation.
Yeah, it's definitely your personality. Yes.
I'm like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, yeah, right. But how do people flirt now? Like, because if they don't have the understanding and the tools, as you say, that in this human connection, how do they flirt?
Yeah. So, okay. So first of all, that is your personality, okay. But it is also a sign of the times because there are a lot of people. So I've been on this book tour, and I had this amazing event last week in LA where it was a very diverse audience. Like there was probably 50-50 men, women, different age groups. And it was fascinating because I'm like, oh, this room is so representative. And the event was about flirting. So we actually did like a whole workshop, and I taught them like different styles of flirting, and I had them all practice. It was amazing. But it was so fascinating that so many, because I asked, I was like, okay, for the women in the room who date men, who wishes that more men approached you? Everybody raised their hands. I said, okay, to the men in the room who date women, who wants to approach more women or tries to approach women? All the guys raise their hand. I'm like, okay, so what's the problem? And the guys are like, well, whenever a woman is out, she's with a pack of her friends and they're so intently in a conversation with each other, I don't know how to break in. Or they're on their phones and they're so intently on their phones, I don't want to disturb them. And so it did bring the women to say, oh, I guess maybe I should create a little bit more of an opening. So I do think there's a lot of like culturally, the way we move in spaces now. I think, Julia, like to your point, I think I know a lot of women who, if a man came up to them in the bar and said, what are you drinking? Their thought wouldn't be, oh, here's an opportunity to flirt. It would be suspicion, or it'd be judgment, or be like, well, is this somebody that I want to talk to? Or like, why are you asking? Or, like there's this defensiveness that people have. So I think, and I have, a whole chapter about flirting in the book, because I think it is this important for everyone, whether you were single, whether you were in a relationship. Being able to cultivate this connection in the first place, keep it going over time, is something you need to be intentional about. But the style of flirting that you're describing, Julia, I would call that like in the playful teasing category, right? And not everybody's comfortable with that. But there's many different styles of flirting. There's 8 different styles that I identify in the book. And I actually have people start with attentiveness and compliments, okay? And so attentiveness is literally, I mean, there is some courage that's required, because you have to be willing to start a conversation with someone, right? Or when you're in the situation where you are having a conversation with someone, you're like, okay, here's an opportunity, right, for me to lean into this. So attentiveness is just, it's just that. It's leaning in. It's asking questions that you actually care about the answer to, that are meaningful, trying to genuinely get to know something about the other person, sharing something of yourself with the other person. And just really, I define flirting as words and actions that are designed to make another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. That's the baseline, right? And you can layer on top of that desirable, and you can layer on top of that desired by you specifically. So there's levels to flirting, but it just going back to like, okay, how do we just look at this as not this high pressure situation, but we actually look at this as an opportunity just to connect with another human. And maybe this is going to lead to more, and maybe it's going to just be this interaction, but just understanding that interaction in and of itself has value, right? So starting those conversations, giving a compliment. A compliment is a great way to flirt with somebody, and also to take advantage of an opportunity and be a conversation starter, right? So it's like, wow, those are amazing glasses, or like that red looks so good on you, or, I love your shirt. Like, just, it doesn't actually matter what you say, though. Don't be creepy. And like, you're hot is not a great compliment for a stranger. No. Cause and this is another thing I talk about when I talk about flirting. It's like the way you flirt with somebody who is a stranger at an event, or on an airplane, or in a coffee shop, versus somebody that you're actually dating, versus somebody you've been married to for 20 years, those things are going to differ, right? And that's fine, but just be appropriate, right? So it's more about, okay, what's a genuine compliment I can give somebody in this moment? And I also, whenever I do this, events like last week, I always ask the men, I said, how often do you get complimented? And they were like, oh, never, And I was like, and how good does it feel when you do get a compliment? And they're like, oh my God, amazing. Oh my God. Like they love it. Right. Like, men love receiving compliments, and they get them so rarely. So you will literally, if you are a woman who dates men, just giving a man a compliment, you are going to make his day. it doesn't matter whether he's available, whether he's interested, whether you're ultimately interested in him. At least you are moving through the world in this way where you're making another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. And you're also courting the serendipity that is required for those connections to sometimes turn into something more.
I love that. And if I could add to that just from myself, I love to compliment women. I don't find that women compliment each other a lot. And I try to, I'm a woman married to a man, but if I see a woman like walk in and whatever she's got going on I try to be specific to her. Like, like, wow, that outfit looks great on you, or, something that's like, and women just like, well, thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I complimented a woman yesterday on her pants. She had these really cool pants on. I was like, I love your pants. I agree with you. And I think that's, going back to human connection. If we can just sometimes I challenge my clients and I'll say, okay, this week, I want you to see how many smiles you can solicit as you go throughout your day. Right.
I love that.
Just see how many people you can make them make smile. And sometimes just looking at another person and smiling at them is enough to make them smile. Sometimes giving a compliment is enough to make them smile. Sometimes saying something playful is enough to make them smile. But if you actually have that intention, like just imagine for a moment, we lived in a world where that was an intention that people had. Like, I want to move through the world in a way that makes other people feel seen and special and acknowledged. Like, that's the world I want to live in, selfishly.
I think we all, we want to be in that world.
Yeah.
Yeah. We be in that.
Well, switching gears a little bit. So your TED Talk is fantastic. And I recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to go and watch it. And it reminded me of a story that I heard a guy say many years ago that his daughter was growing up. She was young. And he said, jokingly, but not entirely, I'd rather her, sit in front of the TV and watch the 700 Club than the Disney Channel, because he felt like it would be easier for him to deprogram what was going on the 700 Club than this happily ever after idea.
Oh my goodness. So, I think they're both tough to deprogram. But
his confidence was more in the 700 Club. So, because there's so much reinforcement of happily ever after. True. And so you talk about the fairy tale industrial complex and abusive, that's my word, abusive myth of happily ever after. So how do you address this as a matchmaker? Today, do people still caught up in this idea of happily ever after? Obviously the AI woman, there's, some of that wanting this. Yeah.
Well, I think people have a lot of skepticism about it, but even though they have a lot of skepticism, that programming is really strong. Right. And so even though they have skepticism, there is still, at the same time, someone can be skeptical and still have an expectation, for instance, that they're going to know the moment they see someone, whether or not that's their person. Right. They might still, if they meet somebody and that person love bombs them and is like, oh my God, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it doesn't matter that I don't know you. I'm still going to just tell you how you're the best thing ever. They're like, oh my God, this is so romantic. It's like a movie, and they get caught up in that. Right. So I think that just even talking about this and asking people like, well, how do you think romantic love happens? Right? What do you think is the purpose of a romantic relationship? Do you think that you know when you know, or are you open to the fact that you actually need to get to know each other and each other's character and, what is the relationship that you co-create together? Do you really think that a fairy tale wedding is going to ensure a happy marriage? Because none of us have to look far to see from our own lived experiences that having a really beautiful wedding and a really big engagement ring is not a guarantee of a happy marriage. So, but some people just take that and they're like, okay, so love doesn't exist and true love is a myth, and it gets into cynicism because they've seen that it doesn't work this way. However, what I really try to encourage people to think about is, first of all, a marriage is just I know it's just like a wedding is it's a milestone, but it's an event. It's a day, right? And some people they're so focused on the wedding, they're not thinking about the marriage, right? And so this idea that if I have this really beautiful wedding, I'm going to have a really beautiful life is something that is very common, even in people who you would think know better, right? And so I start with just talking to people about the reality of like, you know that a relationship is not set it and forget it, right? You notice how all the fairy tales end with the wedding or the kiss. We don't see what happens.
He's leaving his dirty clothes on the floor.
We don't see what happens, right? 6 months later, a year later, 10 years later, we don't see that part of the story, right? And so I think we do ourselves such a disservice by constantly selling this fantasy idea of love and not actually explaining to people and educating people and recognizing that actually a successful relationship is it's about choosing the right person, but it's also about the skill of communication, the skill of vulnerability, of intimacy, of compromise, of all of these things, right? Like putting another person's needs before your own, but also having boundaries with another person. There's so much to navigate in a relationship. And we really do people a disservice when we act like dating is just something to get through as quickly as possible. You just got to get to that altar, get to that ring, get to that I do, and then just hope everything works out. And it's like, but no, hold on. But do you know how to show up with authenticity, right? Do you know how to be vulnerable? Do you know how to receive that vulnerability from someone else? All of these things.
And so with that, when you're talking about like in dating, try not to do the rush. How can people use like the dating archetype in their romantic and in their non-romantic relationship? Because the idea of a dating archetype, I've never heard about that except from you.
Makes sense though.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure there's probably other dating archetypes out there, but I did create my own, probably about, 6 or 7 years into my career. I realized that people really fall into, look, we're all special unicorns. Everybody's special. Everyone's unique. But we also have a lot in common. And there's a lot that people have in common on the dating journey, right? And so, dating advice is not one size fits all because we are not one size fits all. And we are in different phases of our lives. However, there are, I call them these 4 distinct sort of phases, these 4 archetypes that I have identified that starts with the person who avoids dating altogether. That's a part of their lives. They don't acknowledge, even if they have a desire for that relationship and that intimacy, they don't have the confidence to believe that they can have that. And so they are totally shut down. And that person has a different journey than the person who is the looper. And the looper is somebody who dates and they put themselves out there, but they're stuck in a pattern that they just can't seem to break, whether it's constantly, being attracted to unavailable people or always being taken advantage of in their relationships or, everything starting out really hot and heavy on, having a great first date or 2 dates and then it fizzles out. And then there's the surfer, and surfers tend to be very guided by chemistry and instant chemistry. So I think of a surfer as like the surfer on the beach who like you see the wave and you're like, that's my wave. And you just run and you dive in. Right. And so surfers can have a lot of up and down, a lot of highs and lows because they have this passionate connection and everything is great. And they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then they kind of wipe out because they went too quickly and they took that instant chemistry as a sign that like all systems go. And whereas it actually should have been a sign of like, okay, there's something here, but let me explore that. And let me also pay attention to what is my pattern? What am I naturally attracted to? Because am I naturally attracted to something that is actually beneficial to me in the long run? Or do I actually need to think about how I start to recalibrate that chemistry radar? And then last but not least is the sailor. And sailors are people who really do not have any difficulty getting into long-term relationships. Sailors are the people who are like, yeah, I'm ready to meet somebody. And then they just meet someone, right? And then everybody else is like, how did you do that? I've been on apps for, 10 years and you were single for 2 months. Like, how did that happen? And so sailors have a lot more confidence in their ability to connect. They have a good radar for who is and who is not, somebody who's very commitment minded as well. So, and it doesn't mean that, every sailor chooses the right people, right? Just because they are good at getting into relationships doesn't mean that they're getting into the relationships that are the most fulfilling for them. When I work with sailors, it's usually people who like, they're like, I've been in relationships nonstop since I was 16 and I don't even really know who I am. for instance, right? Like that's a situation that a lot of people find themselves in. So all of those people have they kind of have a different love assignment, right? Which is another thing I talk about in the book, which is like, what is love? What am I being called to understand and to learn about love and evolve in love? And the person who needs to understand that, oh, it's actually okay. It's safe for me to be open and to be vulnerable and to allow myself to be seen. That's a different lesson than the person who needs to learn more about discernment or what are the standards that you have for yourself and for other people. So yeah, I think the archetypes, they're a helpful guideline. And I always like to tell people, like, your archetype is not your destiny. It just happens to be where you are in your love journey right now. And it is helpful for people to get like, oh, okay, I see what I have to do right now. And it might be different than what, my best friend has to do right now.
Very good. Oh, great advice. I'm telling you, great insight. So as we come to a close, every week, Julie and I ask each other how we're just getting better this week. So our question to you is, how are you just getting better this week, this day, this moment?
Yeah. I'm getting better. So it's interesting. So this is what is it, Tuesday? Right. Yes. So on Sunday, I woke up and I was like, I am feeling out of sorts. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to get myself back on track here? And I took a long walk, which I do every day, but I took a really long walk and I went to the Central Park and I sat in the park. I literally sat on a park bench probably for like 3 hours. And I wrote in my journal and I just sort of thought and what I am getting better at is recognizing that when I am feeling, a bit off kilter, rather than just pushing through, it's actually a time to turn inward and to sort of like say, okay, what's going on here? So I think I've done a good job of that this week.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah. I love that.
So much. So thank you so much, Franny, for joining us. So how can our audience keep up with you? Where are you at? Where can they find you on every platform?
Yes, thank you for asking. Well, I'm easy to find because I am Dear Franny, and that's Dear Franny on all social media platforms. You can also, check out my podcast by the same name, which is Dear Franny, which is wherever you get your podcasts. I also have my new book, How to Find True Love, which is available wherever you get your books. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with me and to keep up with what I'm doing. And I would appreciate if people did that.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I think we encourage them to. Yes.
We encourage them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a really great conversation.
Yeah, I loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Just Getting Better with your hosts, Michelle Williams
and Julia Coney.
We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into some important topics impacting women today. To ensure you never miss an episode, click follow or subscribe.
Head over to isjustgettingbetter.com to sign up for our email list, as well as check out all the links and resources in the show notes. And be sure to follow us on social media. If you love the show, will you please help us build our community by sharing it with friends? Until next time,
keep just getting better.